Hey, welcome to the shop. Today I'm going to discuss why I took out a TR6060 to replace it with a Turbo 400 and what's involved to do the swap. So as mentioned in the intro there guys, basically as you've seen, or if you've seen the last video that just went over the quick build bio of my Fox Body Mustang, it did have a TR6060 transmission, 2011 specific Camaro SS. Basically just not what I was expecting for it to be. When I put a turbo setup on it, just small little turbo. I do have an upgrade for this as well, but with that turbo, just I didn't really find it was what I was looking to have in for a vehicle. So always was an automatic guy. My last drag car was an automatic with a glide. Always liked the Turbo 400s just for the 3-speed ability. So kind of really looking forward to getting this in. No other real reason aside from just it wasn't what I was expecting, period, really. So the transmission works great, shifts amazing. I still have the ACT twin disc clutch up underneath. I still have to remove that from the back of the motor. But I mean, aside from that, I get zero complaints about it. Just not what I was expecting. So swap over to the Turbo 400. There is a couple small things that I needed to do. Obviously I got to remove the clutch pedal. It is a full Wilwood clutch pedal assembly, so I just need to take the reservoir and the master off the firewall and then drop the pedal assembly out from the basket. To put the 400 in, for the time being, I'm just going to put a stock 4L80E torque plate in there, or flex plate in there, with the spacer. I do have a 2200 stall converter right here that I'm going to put in it. Just again, I just want to be able to move this thing for the winter for the time being. I am going to do a little bit of a different build in the turbo setup. So basically the ability to move this in and out is really all I want for the time being. So let's go at pulling the clutch off. Just going to get a couple last pieces removed off it before the Turbo 400 can go in. I do got to go see a guy to get the flex plate and the spacer to be able to get this back in, and I got to get some fluid, and then get the shifter mounted as well so that we can again get this in. So got the clutch out. As you can see, it's an ACT twin disc. Very little wear on it, obviously. It's still got the step marks in it. I would consider it brand new still. If it's got 150 kilometers on it, I'd be surprised. 200K maybe max. Just basically putting around trying to break it in and kind of get used to the car. But as I mentioned, just not really what I was expecting. So I do have all the washers for it for proper spacing on these little buggers here to where it meets the top surface of the clutch, and all that mounting hardware is there, as well as flywheel bolts. So back to the automatic world. So just for anyone that's never taken a TR6060 out, because it is a 3-bolt flange on the rear shaft and it has a remote shifter, there's a couple differences in the way that it gets removed. The shifter has to be taken out via these little twist locks. Basically pop the clip free with a little hook. It lets you roll it up and then basically slide it out. That lets the base of the shifter remove. And same thing in here, there's what we always referred to as like a bitch pin. That just basically gets pushed out. So you pull a C-clip out, push it out, and then this separates so that the whole shifter assembly, as you can see there, kind of just went floppy on me, can come out. So that is how that gets removed. Bell housing bolts otherwise are all the same. The Turbo 400 has a couple, as you can see, there's one here and an upper one. The Turbo 400 has one here, but not in the center, but has one here where the LS doesn't. So not sure if that's going to be a concern when you go to bolt it up. Otherwise, pretty well the same bolt pattern, good to go. Okay, so got my torque or flex plate for my torque converter. There's no fluid in it. That's brand new. Basically, to decipher between the different generations of flex plates, this is a 4L80. It's dished. As you can see, there's a dish in it. For this flex plate to be used with like a 700R 4L80 700R turbo 350 power glide, you need to use this flywheel with this spacer oriented that the spacer is on transmission side. So flex plate, spacer, transmission. On a 4L80 flex plate, for it to work putting in one of those transmissions, you need to use the flat style flex plate, there's no dish to it, with the spacer inboard of the engine, so that your flywheel bolts will line up to be the 11 3/4 inch that they're required to be on a 3-bolt torque converter. The other option you can get is from a company called ICT Billet. I think there's a couple other companies that make this. This is a spacer to basically take place of this spacer for this flex plate. So put this on the engine, this just basically pushes the snout of the crankshaft out far enough that it'll support the snout of the torque converter. So those are the options you can go with. I'm choosing to go with the 4L80 flex plate. Just for the time being, I am going to end up buying an SFI flex plate just so it's all certified, and also a new converter, but I'm not going to bother till we get to start racing, because there's no point buying it for just to expire in the meantime. So I'm going to get to go ahead and bolt this plate on, and then we can get the transmission prep to go back up in place, bolt it in, and then I can start to make a rear transmission mount and get the car back together so that we can maybe try to get it back over the grid and power shortly. Okay, so we're going to put the torque converter on the transmission. They do just recommend putting a little bit of grease on the end, just so as the seal goes on, it's got a nice smooth surface on it so you don't have any chance of hurting it. The proper way to put this on is essentially you're going to get 2 clumps. You're going to get 1 clump from the first set of gears clamping onto here. The second set is going to be the pump drive, these aligning with the gears in there. So I can look in and see that the pump drive is on an angle about yay, so I'm going to put the converter in at the same deal around that same area. I did put a little bit of fluid in it, so some fluid might come out of it, but knowing where it sits, you know, same thing, I'm looking to keep that angle over here. Did you get bolts? Yeah. There's no way that slipped on that easy, but maybe it did. Alright, so as mentioned, going to put that on, that actually did go in that smoothly, but essentially what you're looking for is sometimes if you line it in, you'll get like a clunk, you'll feel the converter hit, and the tabs of the converter are still close to the edge of the case. What you're looking for is that last drop where it falls between those 2 gears that we showed you on the pump drive, to ensure that the pump's driving the transmission. So once that's together, basically that's all you got to do here. Flywheel is already on, or flex plate is already on, so basically transmission at this point is good to go up. So alright guys, so transmission's in place here. As you can see, it's up on the block still, haven't got the cross member in place yet, but it is going to be pretty close to the same position as the last cross member, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue getting in the line, but otherwise everything else looks good with it. No issues getting it up into place. Converter went in great. Still spins as it should. And just tech tip is once you do have the converter in place, you should still be able to spin it before it actually makes itself tight to the flex plate. So now that we're at this point, we can get the rest of the bolts tightened up, get a cross member in, make sure everything's lined up properly to the rear, and go from there. Alright guys, so got everything out from the car. There's our Willwood pedal assembly, our ACT clutch. All the reservoir and stuff is all removed from the firewall. Nothing in there no more. So as we just seen on the bench, the pedal's gone as well. We are officially over to an automatic transmission. For anyone taking note of what's sitting right there, we are basically going automatic because of that sucker right there. Going to aim to make some big power. And as I mentioned, the manual just wasn't going to be the one that I wanted for it. So switched over to the Turbo 400. It is in place, and if you guys keep track of the channel, you'll definitely see more updates. I'm gonna call it a night for tonight on this side of it. Keep an eye out on the rest of the build for it. When I go to set pinion angles on the rear transmission, I do have to put the cross member that's sitting right here in place. Just got to modify the mount for it. Drive shaft is sitting there against the bench. That needs to be redone. It is about 2.5 inches too short. But I was hoping that was going to fit, but not going to be the case. But chances are I'm just going to end up getting a Sonex flange for it anyway, or a yoke for it anyway, and then just get rid of the slip in the drive shaft. So until next time, enjoy it, drive safe, chat again.